recording.
Okay, action. Here we go. All right, Mumsy, we just wanted to take a few minutes and get to hear from you about some things that you'd like to share and have some questions to ask you. Just want to hear a little bit about your life and see what we can learn about you. That sound okay?
That's so sweet that you guys even want to do that.
First of all, I'd say it's June 18th, 2024, 1:30 p.m.
That is today's date.
Yeah.
And we were at 308. What's the name of the street? Smith Circle in Dawsonville.
So Mom, want to ask you the first question, and the first question would be, I guess it's maybe a small series of questions, just to introduce yourself. Tell us when you were born, and tell us where you were born.
Okay, I was born, November 11th. Does anybody know what day that is? That's a very special day.
Is
Ira?
the day that the airplanes crashed into the...
No, but you're close.
Oh.
You're close. Does anybody remember what day November 11th is?
Birthday?
It's my birthday, but what else is it? It's a national holiday. It's Veterans Day.
Oh.
What's a veteran? Anybody know?
Veterans Day.
Somebody who got to work?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's always been very special to me that I was born on Veterans Day. And I was born in 1955, so 11/11/1955. And I was born in Miami, Florida.
What hospital?
Mercy Hospital in Miami. My parents came from Cuba and they were living in Miami at that time, and that's where I was born.
Tell us a little bit about your childhood, like brothers and sisters, their names, and maybe what life was like as a kid in Miami.
I was the youngest of three. The firstborn was Tio, Luis Max Rodriguez, and he was 6 years older than me. And then came Aunt Janice Cologne. She was 3 years older than me. And then came me. I was the baby of the family. Who here's the baby of the family? Jackie,
Yeah.
Annabella, Eva, Truly, and Eli,
Where is
Daniel. Yeah, so I was the baby of the family, and it was cool. You know, everybody. You know, I did get teased a lot, teased by the older kids, but it was okay.
You were always known as Louie's little sister.
Yeah, Louie's little sister. That was in college, the college days. I was known as Louie's little sister.
What about your parents? What are their names? And tell us a little bit about your mom and dad.
My dad was Luis Argelio Rodriguez. Super Cuban name. And my mother was Sarah Luz Barnes Rodriguez.
And where were they born?
They were both born in Santiago de Cuba. Yeah, they were born and grew up in Santiago, and they came to the United States when they were as teenagers. Their parents sent both of them to high school. My mother went to Stockbridge, Massachusetts, and my dad was sent to several different schools when they were young. So yeah, and they decided to stay in Miami after they finished college, and So that's how I ended up being born in Miami. All three of us were born in Miami.
Where did they go to college, and what did your mom and dad do for a living?
My mom, I'm not sure if she even went to college. I know she went to high school in Stockbridge. My dad went to, what's that college? Rebecca?
The brewmaster?
Daniel?
That's where your mom
Where
was
Susie
Oh,
went?
Young Harris.
Young Harris.
Really?
Oh, that one, I went
Yeah.
there. I've been there before.
You've been there? Yeah, my dad went to Young Harris, and he also went to the Chicago Brewery Institute, because he wanted to be a brewmaster, and so he graduated from there, and
Didn't he work for someone interesting in Cuba?
yes,
Bacardi?
the Bacardi family.
Mm-hmm.
He always used to talk about how the Bacardis were in his backyard. They were in his neighborhood, and so we have letters where he tried to. He was applying for work with the Bacardis, and then right at that point was when Castro was taking over, and communism and socialism was taking over in Cuba. And so that messed everything up. And the Bacardis, I believe, they moved to Puerto Rico and Mexico. And my dad didn't want to go to either one of those places. And so we ended up in Miami. And he ended up not really pursuing a brewery. That the Lord just had different plans for him.
Yes, he did.
And he ended up working at the harbor, in the Miami harbor,
Port of Miami.
the port of Miami, for probably about 30, 40 years.
Where all the big ships came in.
Yeah,
Cruise ships.
all the big ships, where you see all the big ships in Miami, that's where he worked. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the way that your faith was growing up and how that transformation happened in our family with Jesus coming into our family?
My mother was raised Catholic, from Cuba, so was my father. Everybody in my family was raised Catholic. My mother became very disillusioned and disappointed in the Catholic Church. She could just see a lot of fakery going on. And so she started searching for the truth. And right at that point, Jehovah's Witnesses started coming to the house and influencing her to join the Jehovah's Witnesses. And my father, who really didn't know the Lord at that point, but he knew that the Jehovah's Witnesses were not the right way for her to go. He decided to go to the local Bible bookstore just down the street. So he went over there and let the people know there that he wanted somebody to come and talk to his wife about the truth. And so they sent a very young Bible college student, Dick Seymour, at the time. And he was just a young 20-year-old at Miami Bible College. So he came to the house and started talking to my mom, and she, he shared the gospel with her, and how much the Lord loved her and how Jesus died for her. And she ended up believing in the Lord Jesus Christ, and she was the first one in our family to become a Christian. And so through her, the rest of our family became Christians, but she shared with me when I was just a little, I was probably about 3 or 4-ish, and I trusted the Lord at that point, and I was baptized in our church, and I believe we went to a Baptist Christian church, and I believed in Jesus as a very young little girl, and I believed in him ever since. And that's how it's trickled down through all of our family,
Glory to God.
the Barnes family, and the rest of our family, our cousins, and so that was very special. And I was raised in the church down there, and as a teenager we went to camps, and just like Ezzy, we went to camps every summer and winter and just had a blast, and so it was great. I was raised in the church, and Florida Bible Church down there at Coconut Grove, and it was great. It was a wonderful childhood. Very thankful for it. Very thankful for my upbringing in the Lord.
And were there any other people in our family that were being transformed around the same time frame as your mom, as Mima, your mom?
Yes, Tia Rita. Apparently she was in Venezuela at the time, but she also was searching for the truth, and she was also raised Catholic. And she started searching for the truth over there, and there were some missionaries over there that were starting a church in Venezuela where they lived. My uncle worked for Bethlehem Steel, Iron Mines Company of Venezuela, and so through those missionaries, she became a Christian, and Uncle Charlie became a Christian. And then the rest of their family, Brenda, Elaine, Ronnie, and Ricky, all became Christians. So my mother and Tia Rita became Christians at the same time. And so they would write letters and encourage each other and help each other. And Tia Rita would try to witness to the priests there, but to no avail. And they would chastise her because she was leaving the Catholic Church. They did not like that.
Nope.
So we had a rough time of it.
And Tia Rita, remind us, how is she related to you and Mima?
Tia Rita, Uncle Charlie from Cuba, he went to Venezuela.
Uncle Charlie is who?
Uncle Charlie is my mother's brother, older brother. He went from Cuba working for Bethlehem Steel to Venezuela working for Bethlehem Steel. And that's where he met Tia Rita. She worked in the offices there. And neither one of them were believers at the time. And but they eventually did become believers, and
He was in the CIA, right?
he was also in the CIA. I don't know much about that story, but he was secretively at that time there to not only work for Bethlehem Steel, but to also spy on the communism that was going on in Venezuela. And now look at Venezuela right now. It's a mess. But it was going on back then in the 1950s, 1960s. It was going on back then. So he was there also spying on the communists and then reporting back to the CIA. that's all I know about that story.
How about a couple fun questions? As a child, what were some of your hobbies? Is there certain things that you enjoyed doing for fun as a kid?
Loved animals. I've always loved animals. So we always had a ton of animals. And my mother loved animals as well. So we always had cats and dogs. We had ducks. We had rabbits. We had fish. All kinds of birds like parrots, parakeets, cockatiels. We had, just always had animals. I don't remember a time when we didn't have an animal in the house. And so that was great. I love the animals. Let's see, what else did I do? Always played outside.
Did you have a favorite TV show growing up that you liked to watch?
Yeah, Skipper Chuck.
What's that?
He's not around anymore. And Captain Kangaroo.
Is it like gray?
These were real guys. Skipper Chuck was a young guy, but he dressed up like a sailor.
See him every day on television.
Yeah, he would come on with some kids, and he would. It was kind of like who's that guy with?
Coyote Peterson?
Huh?
Coyote Peterson?
No, who's the one? It's a good day in the
Mr.
day.
Rogers.
He was kind of like Rogers, Mr. Rogers, but he had more of a nautical, theme. It was always like out in the ocean. And then Captain Kangaroo, see, Skipper Chuck, I think actually I was on his show a couple times.
Me too.
On Skipper Chuck. Yeah. Yeah, because it was filmed in Miami. And so I've tried to look through the archives to see if I can find the ones that we were on, but I haven't been able to find them. And then Captain Kangaroo was kind of the same thing, but he was kind of like Mr. Rogers, and of course it was always Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse, and the cartoons were really sweet back then. They were clean and they were calm and peaceful.
Now they're just crazy.
Yeah,
You never
Yeah.
heard any curse words.
you gotta be careful now with cartoons.
Mom, what about as you became a teenager, and what high school did you go to, and college? And I'd love to hear how you met Dad. That would be a good next part of the story, maybe.
I first went to Miami Christian School. Went there for a few years, and then I went to Florida Christian School. And then I think my sophomore year, I decided that I wanted to go to public school because we had a Bible study that was a high school Bible study that was meeting in our house. It was called Youth Ranch, and I wanted to be more a part of that and help, to bring kids in. And so I changed, and I decided to go to Southwest High School, which was a public school.
How old were you at this time?
It was the last 2 years of high school.
10th grade.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe 14, 15. So I worked a lot. I spent a lot of time with the youth ranch, I was one of the leaders there. And I was in a singing group and always involved in that. And what was the other question?
So you graduated high school. Do you remember
Yes.
what year that was?
Southwest High School. I believe it was 1974.
Mm-hmm.
And then what did you do after that?
Yeah. Went to Florida Bible College. but I only lasted one semester because at that point, the president of our school, of our college, kind of fell apart, and the whole college kind of like fell apart. He fell into sin, and the whole, just about like most of the college kids left. And I was one of those because I don't want to be around that. So I left, and I got involved with my church, Southwest Community Church, and got involved, with different ministries over there. And we went on a youth trip to Maggie Valley, North Carolina, for a snow camp. And so they rented, I think, 2 Winnebagos. It's kind of like an RV. And so I got in there. We went to the camp, and then on the way home, one of the Winnebagos broke down
In Orlando.
in Orlando. And then, so Southwest Community Church had to send about 3 or 4 men to come and rescue us. And so one of those men was Rick Edwards. I was one of the high school kids, and Rick was a college kid. And he came, and I don't know what they did. What did they do? They just
brought another Winnebago.
Oh, you brought another Winnebago.
Loaded you guys up in the Winnebago, and then that's when I noticed you. That was all she wrote. That's right.
So that's where we first met, even though we were going to the same church, weren't we?
Yeah,
But we were involved in different things,
probably. Well, you were also younger,
Yeah.
so it naturally you don't necessarily go for somebody that's younger than you.
Yeah.
But when God wants you together, you do.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's how we met.
So I knew Vivian because she was a famous flaming evangelist. She was well known for telling people about Jesus Christ. And man, when I heard that and then I saw her, I wanted to date her. Maybe even marry her. So I prayed and asked God to lead me and guide me, and He did. He led me to you. We've had a lot of fun times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the next question?
I think you might have made it through my questions.
Oh.
That's how we met.
What other questions do we have? Josh, you have any?
Let's see if any of the other adults first
Yeah.
have any questions.
I
If there's any adults that have some questions.
kind of want to go backwards though
Yeah.
a little bit and talk about like your grandparents. Can
We
you
didn't really
tell
talk
us
about
on both sides, their names, where they were from, where they were born, and just anything about them, where they worked, anything that you can think of about
My
them.
grandfather on my dad's side was also Luis Rodriguez. I'm not sure what his middle name was, but he was from Havana, and I only met him one time. When I was about 3 years old, we took a trip to Cuba, and this was right before Cuba closed. we took a trip, we went on a ferry boat. And the ferry, you know, took the car, and it was a huge boat. We drove down to Key West, and it took the car, my father's Edsel, the famous Edsel.
Ugliest car in the
Yeah.
world.
And so that's when I met him. My grandmother is Ana Yopis Rodriguez. And you spell Yopis with 2 L's. L-L.
OPIS.
Oh. That was her maiden name. And she was, I'm not real sure where she was born. She told me once that she was born on a ship on the way to Cuba.
She didn't speak any English.
Yeah. And
Your grandmother.
but she was she lived in Miami, so I did get to know her more and spend more time with her. And she was Little Miss Personality.
Oh yes.
She was Little Miss Party girl.
Like Tito show like Tito has like face expressions or
Yeah, she loved, you know, she loved people, she loved to talk, she loved parties, she loved to get all dressed up, makeup. She was really cute.
What happened to her husband?
They got divorced.
Okay.
They got divorced, and then that's why she came to Miami, and he stayed in Cuba.
And she married Sixto.
Sisto.
S-I-X-T-O.
She met him in Miami, and he was from the Canary Islands.
Which is a part of Spain.
Sisto.
He was a big, strong guy.
And then my mother's father was Max Barnes Sr. And he was from Massachusetts, from Stockbridge, Massachusetts.
He was an American.
American, and we have him to thank, you know, for meeting my mother and everybody else, because he moved to Cuba to work for Bethlehem Steel, and that's where he met my grandmother, Eustaquia Rodulfo. And she was pure Cuban, but she also had some of the Cuban Indian in her, which is, it's called Siboney, is the Indian. She had Indian blood in her, Cuban Indian, and so that's how my mom and her siblings were born in Santiago. Did I answer all your questions? Yeah, and they, my Barnes grandparents moved to Miami as well. And my mother and father lived with them in Miami for a while. And they lived long enough to see Tio. They saw Tio as a baby, but they didn't get to see any of us. So I never met them.
What other questions are there out there?
what do you like to do for fun? What's something that you enjoy doing?
I like to paint. I love painting. If I could just get myself up to to do it. I love to paint. I love to garden. I love to hang out with my dogs. I love to, I love nature, so I love to be out in nature. I love to swim. I really miss not swimming. But I love to be able to swim. That's one of my favorites. Ira?
How many pets did you have when you were younger?
Oh my goodness. Let me see if I can name them all. We had Chico, which was a cute dachshund. Sambo, which was a black Labradoodle.
Was this like all at the same time?
No, this was at different times. We had Gigi, which was a cat, and she gave us. My mother never got them spayed, and so we had kittens constantly in our house. They just didn't do that back then, I guess. And the lady that we lived next to a lady. Her name was Anne, and she probably had about 50 cats in her house.
Oh my goodness. 50.
And we called her the cat lady. And I think probably what she did was she took a lot of the kittens that Gigi had, and she took them as her own.
How about your life growing up in Miami when you lived with Mima and Papa? That's what we call Mom's parents. What was life like as far as living in the house with your siblings and anybody else that might have come in through the house and stayed at the house?
At one time we had 12 kids in our house. And that's because
All cousins.
our cousins lived with us. The cousins in Venezuela. They would go to school, they would do elementary in Venezuela, and then when they hit junior high and high school, they were sent to Miami, and my mother would take care of them.
Can you name those cousins?
Yeah, there was on Uncle Max, which was my mother's oldest brother. He had Sarita, Max, Eileen, Eddie. Eddie was my age. Eddie, and then Michael. They had 5. And then Uncle Charlie and Tia Rita had Ricky, Brenda, Elaine, and Ronnie. And then there was us. And so,
Yes.
which was 3.
How many bedrooms were there in this house?
3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom.
1 bathroom. 12 kids.
And all the animals.
So your mom was cooking constantly.
My mother was, everybody called my mother a saint. Because she took all those kids in, and they weren't with us all the time. It was mainly during the school year. During the summer, the parents would come and get them. And then I got to go to Venezuela several times as a kid. And that was fun. And I'm very thankful for that opportunity. So that was fun. We got to go to Venezuela and live there for the whole summer. That was an adventure. Yeah.
What's one of the funniest things that ever happened to you? Something funny that happened.
Oh my goodness.
Can you think of anything?
I can't think of anything.
Can you tell some stories about like what Venezuela was like?
Yes. I have one story. When I was in Venezuela, my 2 uncles, Uncle Charlie and Uncle Max, and their families lived in an American camp for Bethlehem Steel, which was very nice.
Her mom's brothers.
Yeah, it was very exclusive, very nice. They lived in beautiful homes. It had a club with a huge swimming pool, bowling alleys. We could just run all over the place. And because there were guards, you know, you couldn't come in there unless they knew who you were. And so in front, and I lived with Uncle Charlie and Tia Rita usually when I went. In front of their house was like a rainforest. It was all jungle. And so we would go into the jungle, and there was a huge vine there, you know, like Tarzan swings on. And so all of us kids would go in there, we'd swing on that vine. Whoa. We would swing, I mean, pretty high. And they cut the trees down. And so that was a lot of fun.
Was it like hard to hold on to?
No, it was a real honest to goodness vine.
Like there was like a little part you stand on?
Yeah, they built like a little platform so you climb up, and it was at the very end, and then you would swing like that. And then all of the grown-ups told us that we had to stop doing it. Well, we decided to disobey.
Why did they tell you so?
And even Mumsy disobeyed. And so, crazy, I was the last one. Everybody else swang. This was after we were told to stop, because I think the adults could see that it was starting to get flimsy and it was starting to become a hazard. Well, I was the last one, and so I got on that thing and I went, boom.
You fell.
I fell, and I fell right on my back.
How high was it?
Huh?
How high was it?
It was pretty high.
So like
I mean, it was pretty high, and like in this part there were cut stumps, and luckily I missed the stumps.
Oh,
I was at the part where there weren't any stumps.
is it taller than Noah?
What
Like the highness, is it taller than
No,
Noah?
I mean these were huge. These were
Like
giant.
that high?
These were big trees.
All the way to the top?
If you can imagine, like Tarzan, those huge. You know, this was
taller than these trees.
this was a jungle in Venezuela. It was a real jungle.
Did you get like a concussion from that?
Huh?
Did you get like a concussion from that?
I hurt my back and I was pretty sore for about a week or so. And I did get in trouble. I was punished. We were all punished.
I feel like your punishment was already done.
Yeah, we all got in trouble. But that's one of the worst things I've done. Ever.
What's the funnest thing you did when you were a kid?
The funnest thing I did? I remember back then, Batman had just come out. They had just come out with it was the first Batman. And it was like, you know, they had this big tunnel where the car went.
Was it animated?
No, these were like from the 1960s. You could probably find them. The Batman and Robin. It was the very first Batman series that they did.
Black and white.
Yeah, I think black.
Not color.
Yeah. And so we used to watch Batman and Robin, me and my friend. And so we decided we wanted to build a Batman tunnel. So we did. We went to the side of the house with a bunch of shovels and we dug 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 and
And then it probably collapsed.
yeah, we finally gave up. But I still remember that. That was a lot of fun.
Could have collapsed.
We had big dreams about building a Batman tunnel.
What was your friend's name?
Cindy.
Cindy. Was she Venezuelan?
No, she lived in the neighborhood.
Oh, she was
She was
American.
my friend.
What was the day you and Granddaddy got married?
What was the what, honey?
The day, the date?
The day? February 23rd.
What year?
1975.
You got it. How long have we been married? Anybody know? Today, 48 years.
Oh,
Gonna be 49 when February rolls around. Huh? 50?
You've been married 49 years.
We've been married 49 years.
It'll be 50 next February.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Oh, wow.
Hallelujah.
Almost to your 50th anniversary.
50.
Isn't she pretty? The way she smiles, those little pretty wrinkles right around her eye,
Sure is.
pretty green eyes.
what was the first date you went on with him?
Oh,
Let's see what you answer.
the first day we went to play Goonie golf.
You know what that is?
No. But
No, it says yes.
It's putt-putt. Do you know what is putt-putt?
Yeah.
Yeah. Goonie golf. And then afterwards there was our church had a ministry where people could call in. We had little cards that everybody passed
We
out.
had a business card. You know what a business card is, right?
It's how you get into a building that you work in. Just talk about it.
All right. So anyway, we had a business card that looks like this one, and it said "What's up," and then it had a phone number. Go ahead, Vivi.
Yeah, so people would volunteer to go and sit in there and take phone calls from people and answer their questions, pray with them.
The people would call in from all over the city of Miami. Hey, I found this card. And they would ask us questions.
We'd share the gospel
We'd share
with
the
them.
gospel with them.
So we went there afterwards. Isaiah?
What was the scariest thing you've ever done?
Scary?
The scariest thing.
Judah's raising his hand.
Judah, you'll be next, sweetie. The scariest thing I've ever done. Try skiing.
What about Volcan Barba
Yeah.
What about what?
when you were pregnant?
Costa Rica. That's another.
Talk about Costa Rica.
Your dad we had a big Jeep in Costa Rica. It was huge.
Carried 14 people.
Big red Jeep. And, I was like huge pregnant with Jackie. But that didn't stop us from going on all these back trails and so we took this dirt road to a volcano, Volcan Barba, and it just had huge
Ruts.
holes in the road.
Holes in the dirt. And the boys were hanging off the back. But the dirt was as high as that top of that sail in that boat. And then we almost hit them up against the dirt when they were hanging onto the back ladder.
Mumsy was always a pretty safe person, so I didn't really try too many scary things. I was always more on the caution side.
What was your favorite part of Costa Rica?
I loved everything about Costa Rica, but I loved the flowers. All the flowers and the tropical plants, and the people were beautiful, very friendly.
Food was out of this world. It was great.
Food was great. Yeah, it was good. Judah?
What was the funniest thing that happened when you were a kid?
Funniest thing. Let me think. Well, this might not be funny, but it's kind of interesting. You guys might find it interesting. Brenda and I in Venezuela, we were with my aunt, Tia Rita. She was visiting somebody and they had a creek in front of their house. And so Brenda and I were playing in the creek, and guess what we found? We found a tadpole that was about this big.
Oh my goodness gracious. Wow. Oh.
And it was a tadpole. Everything in Venezuela is like 2 or 3 times bigger than,
Yeah.
even like the centipedes.
Is that the strangest thing you've seen? No,
Probably the strangest.
I
And the frogs were huge. They were, I mean, really big.
Like how big?
Hmm?
Can I tell you a question?
Mhm.
I want to know how your parents died.
How my parents died? Mima passed away. She had Alzheimer's. Do you know what that is? Alzheimer's is a disease where they lose their memory and they forget who everybody is and they don't recognize anybody. And it's a brain disease. And so eventually the brain gets so diseased that the brain forgets it stops telling the body what to do in order to stay alive. And so that's what happened with her. She had it for about 10 years. It's a long time. And my father died of a heart attack.
I heard about that. He died in his sleep, right?
Yeah, he died of a heart attack.
Sitting in his rocking chair, I believe.
How did he get the heart attack?
He had heart disease.
How old was
And
he?
eventually,
How old was he
it
when that
just-
happened?
I think he was 75.
yeah, 75 when he died. My mother was almost 90 when she passed away.
I thought my mom said she was 95.
Yeah, she was. I don't know the exact number. I'm terrible at numbers, so I don't like to say them. But yeah, Everin.
What was the craziest thing you've ever done?
It's all about God.
Let me see. The craziest thing I've ever done was in Costa Rica. We were visiting a family and way up in the mountains. And your father wanted to stay an extra night, and I needed to get home with the kids because they had school the next day. So I took a bus. And the buses in Costa Rica, the travel buses in Costa Rica are not like what you have here. They're old, they're bumpy,
No air conditioning.
no air conditioning. And so I got on there with 3 kids and a baby. And so we went all the way to the back because the back was kind of elevated up high. So I kind of liked that. I wanted to be able to see what was going on. And so we sat in the back, and it was probably about a 2-hour drive. And it was like, of course the kids had fun. The kids had a good time. And then when the bus left us off, we had to walk like maybe 30 minutes in the pitch black to get to our house. And Rebecca, I lost control of her for a second, and she took off into the road, and there was a car coming, and luckily the car saw you. Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened. But the car saw you, and he beeped his horn. And, you know, I was able to get you and grab you and put you back with us. But we finally made it back to the house and we were safe, so.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
That was crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. In Spain, I was very sick and we couldn't find a restaurant anywhere because the restaurants are so different in Spain. They're not like here. They're more like bars. They're bars.
So go like on the side of the road and just say, I want to have some food.
No, they look like restaurants, but they're not restaurants. They're bars. So they don't really serve regular food. So I thought, okay, well the safe thing to do is to ask them, what is the meal of the day? What is the dish of the day? I thought, okay, that's gotta be safe. You know, if everybody else is eating it, that's gotta be a safe thing, because I didn't recognize anything on the menu. And so he said what it was, and I said, okay, I'll have that. And he brought it to me, and at first I thought it was black beans. And then I kept looking at it and realized it's not black beans.
It's eyeballs.
It was squid in its own juice. The ink that the squid, you know, lets go of when he's scared.
Yeah. So did y'all eat there? Did y'all eat that?
No, I didn't eat it. So I ended up not eating that night. Yeah, I think I tried one little piece of it to see if maybe it's okay. No.
You didn't like it?
We probably got room for maybe one or two more questions, guys, and then we're gonna let Mumsy share with us just briefly, and then we're gonna pray for her. Judah, did you want to ask a question real quick? Go ahead.
When was your dad born?
When was my dad born?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he was probably born in 1920. Yeah, my mother was born in 1924, so I'm just assuming that he was born in like 1920, maybe 1919, something like that. It was a whole different world back then.
And what was his birthday?
September 25th, I believe, is his birthday, but I might be wrong on that.
And your mom? When was her
My
birthday?
mother is March 15th, 1924.
What was the best thing you did when you were a kid?
The best thing, hang out with family. That was my favorite thing. We, when all the family would come from Venezuela, they would come every summer, and we would all, you know, go swim. We'd go to the beach, we'd go to the pool, we'd hang out. All the cousins, we'd have a blast. And we would just play and play and play and play.
All right, one last question, Ira.
So, what
Oh,
was the
Edward.
thing you liked to do the most that like you basically always wanted to do?
Hang out with animals and hang out with family. I enjoyed that. Everin?
What was it like preaching the gospel?
Oh, it was very sweet. Sometimes it wasn't a lot of fun because there were a couple of times when we were at the park. There was one time, and I still remember this, I was just a young teenager. I went up to, we were handing out heaven tracts. Heaven tracts are like little pamphlets of paper that have the gospel written on them, and so we would go up to the person and just, you know, ask them to read it, take the time to read it. One time there was this old lady sitting on a park bench, And she was just sitting there very quietly. And so I went up to her very quietly, kindly. And I said, "Ma'am, would you, I would like to give this to you." And she looked up at me and she yelled her head off.
Like, what did you say? Like, a lot about
Oh,
his words?
I wanted to be respectful, so I said, "Okay,
Did you say no?
you have a nice day." And so,
What's the weirdest thing? What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen your father eat?
Oh, fish eyeballs.
I have one more thing. What are like the meanest people you've met that like made fun of you for preaching the gospel?
I didn't really have that too much because I guess I hung out with Christians mostly.
Isaiah, last question, bud.
What was your favorite activity?
My favorite activity? I love to color and do crafts, play with animals, take care of my bunnies, hang out with the family and stuff. And one last, I guess this could be my part.
Yeah, so we wanted to give you a chance to share with us a little bit, maybe some things that are important to you that you'd like to share. And if you have any advice or wisdom or anything that you'd like to impart to your kids and grandkids, we'd love to hear it. Just some parting thoughts that you might have, just about life in general, or anything you want to share.
Just remember that God is in control of your life, of each of our lives, whether we like it or not. He's in control, and if you belong to Him, you can't get away from Him. No matter what you do, even the crazy things that happen in your life. Like I went through three times when I was kidnapped. I didn't even talk about that.
Are you gonna talk about
One time I was actually kidnapped and put in a car. The other 2 times were attempted kidnaps.
Can you tell us about them?
I can tell you just briefly. Yeah, the first time I was at school. I think I was in 1st grade, and back then they didn't have like those lines, those car lines, where you have all the teachers out there and the parents, and they're watching, making sure you get into the right car. They didn't have that back then, and so it was just me and my friend, Aurora. I called her Audi. We were just standing out in front of our public school, just standing there minding our own business, waiting for my mother to come get us. Well, my mother was late, and so this guy pulled up, and he asked us, what are we doing? And we said, we're waiting for my mom. And he said, well, here, get in, and I'll take you home. And we were stupid enough, crazy enough. Back then, we were never really, there wasn't that much danger, for kids, like there is today. I know you guys are all taught that you don't go anywhere with strangers. You don't talk to strangers, and you're very careful and very cautious about who you hang out with. Well, back then we didn't have any of that. Everything was safe. So we didn't have to worry about it. Well, we got in the car, and he drove us around. I noticed that he had a gun on the side by the door, and so my friend, I was like frozen, I was like, Huh?
Were you like freaking out?
I was like, more like, what is going on? My friend Audi was a little more outspoken, and after he drove us around for about like 10-15 minutes, she said, and she was only in first grade too, she said, take us back to the school. And he did. He took us back to the school, and we got out of the car, and at that point my mother was there waiting for us. But it could have turned out pretty bad. And then 2 other times when I was coaxed, to get into somebody's car. And those other times I knew I learned my lesson.
What is
Don't do it.
What does coax mean?
Coaxed means they're trying to get you in, like, showing you candy, hey, come in the car, I'll take you here and there. And a lot of times, they'll have a little pet, a cute little pet or whatever. But at that point, I learned my lesson, and I said, I'm out of here. But that happened 2 other times. But I said all that to say that even during the crazy, scary times of your life, God is in control of those times, and He's watching over you. His angels are watching over you, and He loves you unconditionally. You'll never find anyone that will love you more than God will love you.
Mm-hmm.
You can search all over the place, and you'll just never find it. So I just want to encourage all of you to love the Lord and to follow Him. There's nothing that would make me more happy than for that to happen. For each of you to make the Lord of your life, and to believe in Jesus, the Lord Jesus Christ, as your Lord and Savior, because He loved you enough to die for you. And you'll just never find anyone that will be willing to do that. Never in a million years.
Infinite God.
Yeah, and so that's what I've learned in my 68 years. That's been the most important lesson for me, is my relationship with the Lord. There's nothing more important than that, and where you're going to spend eternity. That would be my encouragement. Love the Lord, love your family, spend time with each other. I'm so happy to see everybody together.
Oh yeah.
That makes me very happy. My mother, that was one of the most important things for my mom, for everybody, for the family to be together and to hang out together. And so I got that from her.
How about a favorite Bible verse?
There's so many of them, but just off the top of my head, I'd have to say John 3:16. I grew up with that verse. It's probably one of the first verses I learned.
Yeah.
For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in Him will not perish, but have everlasting life. And those words are true. God keeps His promises.
Those are the words of God
And He doesn't lie.
Himself.
He keeps His promises. And those are the best words ever. Because at the end, at the end of your life, those are the words that really matter. It doesn't really matter. Nothing else really matters. But those words are the words that really matter. And they'll get you through this life.
What has kept us together 49 years?
God. God's love. God's forgiveness. Yeah. And you guys are all wonderful. I love each of you very much. I'm very thankful for you. I'm so thankful for how the Lord has blessed me. And He's been so good and sovereign and in control of everything. And He's been a good, He is a good God. And I want you guys to learn that for yourselves, to learn that experientially for yourselves. That's important.
Well, thank you for this interview, for doing this for us. This is a real blessing.
Thank you for listening to me.
It's a blessing to hear from you and to have this memory with you. It's a big blessing for us.
What countries have you been to?